Hey y'all, this is the How to MSP podcast, brought to you by Ridgeview Advisors. I'm your host, Andrew Moore.
We've actually had quite a few clients where we've really fundamentally changed their business because we've put in place the 30, 60, 90-day program, the daily disciplines, encourage huddles and on video, and it's changed the culture. And it's been fun to see that. But unless they're willing to adopt those types of practices, there's a good chance it's going to fail.
That was Jason Knight, one of the founding partners of Scaled. They provide outsourced and staff augmentation to MSPs using South African resources. Jason is a pioneer in the MSP space. Jason has participated in building many managed service support companies. He's helped in coaching and mentoring managed service business owners and operators. He's a successful coach in the evolved systems. And today he's going to talk to us about how to implement staff augmentation into your MSP using international resources successfully. All right, getting started today. Today I have Jason Knight. Jason Knight is with Scaled. He's one of the founding partners of Scaled.
Correct. Yeah.
Love that. And he's going to be joining us today to talk a little bit about outsourcing with your MSP, what that looks like, how to use third-party folks in order to put talent on your service desk, your projects team, all different parts of your MSP. So, Jason, thank you for being here. Where does the podcast find you today?
So I'm in far southwest Texas near Big Bend. So we're going to talk about remote resources today, and I'm about as remote as you can get in the U.S. So out in a very remote area of Texas and coming to you via Starlink. So, yeah.
Starlink. All right. So if we see any strange pixelation in your video or whatever, we'll know that.
Yeah.
No, it's Elon's fault.
That's right.
Blame Elon. How did you get to this point in your career? Like, give us a little bit of background on you. Like, how did you get here?
Yeah. So, Andrew, you and I have run into each other in the past, but I had an ITSP, kind of pre-MSP days, serving medium to large enterprise. We did have an MSP element of it, and the Houston area expanded out to other parts of the country. And Andrew and his former team was also in Texas. So we were actually cooperative competitors, not whatever the competition word we use, right? So we worked together quite a bit and sold that. Frenemies, there you go. And then, so sold that company off and ran that roll-up for a brief time, and then retired from that and started coaching and working on other things, including Scale.
It's fantastic. And Jason's been fantastic with some work we've done on coaching with our other MSPs on top of the work that he's been doing with Scaled. So it's just been a wealth of knowledge. So I'm excited to pick your brain today about this and many other things if it goes in that direction. So I wanted to start things off. So I'll prompt us here. I was one of those MSPs where I had started doing MSP in the early 2000s, right as everybody was kind of moving towards outsourcing offshore in a lot of the bigger businesses, and they were building service centers and stuff in different countries around the world. And they, follow the sun and all that sort of thing. And I saw a lot of quality issues at the time. In the early to mid 2000s. And I really, as an MSP operator, I steered away from it because of my inability to control some of that and just the bad taste in my mouth that I got. And then our market, there was a lot of folks that were just like, if they picked up the phone and they got somebody on the other line that didn't sound like an American, so to speak, right? Yeah. Then there was an issue there. So that a lot of that's changed, right? In the last 4 or 5 years since the pandemic. Can you kind of walk us through like the quick history of like where outsourcing was and how we got to today and why it seems to be a little bit more viable than it was 10 years ago?
Well, first off, I want to, using the word outsourcing does kind of imply something different too. So we do staff augmentation, which is dedicated resources to your environment. So it's no different than hiring somebody really in another part of the country or up the street They're dedicated to your environment, working for you. Outsourcing kind of implies that you've got this remote support desk that we roll over to at night, or we are outsourcing a portion of our support to. And that's not what we do. These are individuals that you interview, you select, and they're dedicated to you. So we'll talk more about how that works. But part of the reason it became more viable was in part the globalization. The pandemic did push everything remote, and really got to a point to where it didn't matter if they were in South Africa or if they were in Kansas. They're by and large, they're working remotely with your clients. So the locale was less relevant. Now it's about, let's find the best resources we can and potentially save some money, but it's really not just about the money. We'll talk about that too, but it's kind of unlocked those, the potential for sure. So we do have some clients that have in the past done outsource or remote support desk, and it's like a call center rollover. And I've definitely found that clients don't respond well to that. And I'm one of them, right? If I call and I get someone who doesn't sound local, immediately I'm envisioning there's a call center somewhere that really has nothing to do with the company I'm calling, that's not really going to be able to help me. And this is kind of the opposite of that. This is someone that, yes, happens to be, in our case, South Africa, but they're fully a part of your organization. And we find that the client experience is very different than a support desk.
So in the old model where, I guess you'll call it like the early models of, you're doing staff aug, but in outsourcing for those old models, like that, where did this new model kind of start to shift in? Like where did you see that the opportunity existed in order to drive value versus like what people had kind of seen as being, something that was going to be a cost savings, but not necessarily like result in higher client satisfaction?
Well, and I'll tell you what we typically tell to our prospects and our clients: don't bring us in purely for cost savings. Bring us in because you need great technical resources. And that is a reality, right? We push great technical resources primarily, and it just so happens they often are lower cost, 60, 70% of the cost of a local resource. But we also say, if you can hire local, hire local. But once you've kind of exhausted that, then give us a call, and we'll be able to share some great resources that might be a match. The reality is you do need local resources. You still need hands on the ground and be able to go serve your clients in person. But there's a real case for the remote team to support most of what we do. So it's a hybrid blend of our clients that are most successful with it still have U.S. based resources, and we highly encourage that, but have supplemented it with remote resources. And backing up a little bit on the why here, in my coaching experience, I've been coaching MSPs for, I don't know, a long time, 10 years or more. And through that, and Andrew, I know you've seen this, there are really two big things that hold back MSPs. And one is a sales engine that works, and the second is operational capacity. And I looked at both of those and said, I'd love to solve them both, but I'm going to start on the operational capacity side, and scale was kind of born out of that. We chose South Africa primarily because you have English as a first language. You've got very similar cultures. They listen to the same music. They watch the same movies, all the things that you would expect to, for a team to gel well together. The cultures do mesh very, very well. And that's not true with every culture out there, right? But for the U.S. culture and South Africa, they fit pretty well together. So we started there and found that we were really good at identifying level 2, 3, and 4 technicians. We don't source typically lower level like admins and L1s out of South Africa. We typically are focused on the higher level, higher capacity technical resources there. And I can share more about that too, if you want.
Yeah, no, I'd like to dig into that, because I think a lot of folks think that they want to have escalation tiers in their stable locally. But it sounds like there's an opportunity to look at bringing escalation tiers on in these other markets. Like, why would you decide to go down that road? Is it strictly financial for your business, or
Well,
is
it,
it?
part of it's financial, but before financial, it's getting, finding those resources. And I hate to say it, but finding a local resource with a talent that's not going to get poached, that wants to do the work, that's willing to work the way that you need them to and the hours that you need them to. We're finding that in the U.S. it's harder to find those resources. They're in high demand. They definitely often get pulled into the enterprise space and to other markets. Holding on to a really strong L3 in an MSP can be difficult, and we find that it's less so when we pull them in. We give them the opportunity. We pay them really well. We treat them well, and they tend to stay. And so it's not about one or the other. It's about, we need a great resource. Where's it going to come from? And like I said, once you've exhausted local, give us a call and we'll start looking at remote. For most escalation positions, and L2, 3, 4 work quite well remote. Now, if you have project requirements, we need to talk about what that looks like and how to supplement that with local resources. But we definitely have clients that have South African project resources, and they do really well.
Why not the Philippines? Why not India? I mean, is it, I've seen other companies that are doing that. I know that you guys are focused in, you talked a little bit about culture and language. I mean, is that kind of where it's at, or are there other pockets of places for outsourcing around the country, around the world that provide opportunity?
There definitely are. And those markets are great markets also. I would say the Philippines and India are markets that probably we don't understand as well, which is partly why we're not there. We really understand the South African market, the employment laws and everything else that go there. But it's also about finding someone who has the problem-solving culture that matches well with your needs. So, for instance, I always say this, but if I give you a problem, are you going to ask me, how would you like me to solve that? Or are you going to tell me this is the way I'm going to solve that? Well, in an MSP, especially the higher tier, I don't need someone, an L3, to be asking me, how do you want me to solve this? I need someone with the initiative that's going to go do it, right? Or understands what's needed and knows how to pull together with the team to make it happen. Culturally, we're finding that our South African team tends to be more of that, here's how I'm going to solve that. Certain other cultures around the world, you definitely get more of that, how would you like me to solve it mentality. And it's certainly not across the board. Individuals vary greatly, but in general, that's what we've experienced. So that's part of the reason for that. Now, I will say that we've seen clients that have great experience at the admin level and L1 level and even L2s with Philippines. And that's those roles fit really well with the way they prefer to work. But there are definitely time zone challenges and other things that come into that as well. But certainly we've seen great success in the Philippines also. Just like anything else, though, it's a matter of going through enough interviews and talking to the team member, really vetting them well, not just for technical capability, but the cultural integration. So I probably said culture 20 times already, and culture is the core of the success here. I've absolutely seen guys that are just rock stars that have got great experience and they've got incredible ability and capacity, but there's not a culture fit there and it just blows up. And so we vet heavily for culture first, and then we look at technical after that. And it doesn't matter where they are, local or not. That should be your approach.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. Back to your point, like, we're not talking about hiring people to perform tasks. We're talking about integrated folks, right? Which I think kind of boils down where the industry, it's shifted from task-based outcomes to team integration. Does that
has a lot to do with it. Yeah. So if you think about when you think about outsourced help desks and call centers, it is very task oriented. It is pick up the phone. You've got a script. There's a limitation of what you can do before you escalate. And in the MSP world, obviously we don't live by that. In fact, one of the reasons we also don't place a lot of L1s, I personally am a big proponent of first call resolution. So if we can get an L2 to answer the call that has the ability and the initiative to solve the problem right there, the client's going to be much happier. We have fewer escalations. Operationally, we're more streamlined. That tends to be, in my opinion, better than a lower level L1 that is really just receiving the call, doing basic triage and passing it on to somebody else.
Yeah. And I do want to, at some point later on in this conversation, I want to get into cost analysis on this, because I think what you're saying sounds fantastic in theory, but I do want to dig into it a little bit. Not that I'm asking you guys to get into directly about your pricing, but just general.
Happy to share that.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to dig into that. But before we move down that road, we've started to talk about operational integration and culture fit. And one of the things that I keep thinking about is how, if I'm an operator, if I'm a service manager, how do I integrate people into my team that work in another country? Like, how do I manage the schedule, their time, their accountability? Like, what level of maturity do I have to have as a service manager in order to make sure that they're doing a good job and that I'm clear with what I'm seeing from them? Like, how do you overcome that when you're dealing with staff aug or an outsourced resource from another location like that?
It's a great question. And it's true of not just staff aug, but it's, if you hire somebody remote, you have a remote team member, you're going to experience a lot of the same things. So I'm a huge proponent of video, always on video. And so there are a lot of companies out there that we've worked with that we'll even do interviews with video off, right? That's just on audio. And it really tells us a little bit about their maturity when it comes to remote teams, because the reality is it's really tough to manage and engage a remote team member without some face-to-face. You've got to be able to read their expressions and see what's going on and have conversations. So first and foremost, video always on. Fully involve them in your environment, right? We have clients that the team members are part of their Christmas party. They'll pull them around on an iPad, or they'll bring them in some other way. They're conferencing them in. They give them gift vouchers for, go have a meal, and they participate in the little their incentive-based pay, and they're just treat them like a team member, giving them the not just impression, but the understanding that they are fully part of their team. They just happen to be remote. And when you start kind of breaking that down to where they really are operating as part of your team, you'll find that your clients really don't have an issue with them. You're talking to Johan, who just happens to be in Cape Town versus in Chicago, right? But it's easy to say he's part of our team. He just isn't physically in our office, and they get over it really, really quickly. In fact, we have clients that they prefer our team. The accent actually in some cases is a positive. They like talking to them, and So anyway, it can absolutely be done, but intentionality around integration, you got to be careful not to forget about them. I do have a client that they were really hesitant about bringing us on. They had a resource in India they literally had forgotten about. They went weeks without talking to this guy, and it was very much out of sight, out of mind. But they were the type of environment where they were never on video. They didn't have huddles. They didn't have the type of engagement. They just had issued tickets and assumed things were getting handled. So we do some coaching, and we highly encourage that you treat them like they're in a cube down the hall there. Just make sure that you're engaging with them virtually as much as possible.
Well, I've seen too, in some of the coaching engagements that I've done, and some shared coaching engagements that we've had together, and just in talking with the MSP space in general, I think there is a level of maturity that is required of companies that have remote workers, regardless of whether they're staff aug or they're, local, so to speak, W-2 employees. I feel like having, we've talked about this a lot together, you and I, these daily disciplines, weekly one-on-ones, measurement of outcomes from each individual and how they contribute to the team and to the company. I feel like if folks aren't doing that, they're like, if you haven't done that yet internally, even like with your own service desk, if you haven't brought on a remote person, that needs to be something that you get nailed down before you bring on your first remote person, let alone somebody that you might bring on that's staff log in a completely different country. Like it, or am I off base? Like you're like,
No,
nah, man, you can just jump.
You're spot on in the sense that those are absolutely required. And I will tell you that when we first started the scale, we were really open to, hey, do you need a resource? We got a resource. And we found some common themes of failures. And what you just described was very, very high on the list. And so we actually vet clients more closely now, in that if they are unwilling to adopt those practices, we'll tell them, hey, we need to be careful here. In some cases, we've actually said we're not going to place somebody there. And it's in part because we know the probability of success is low if you don't have those disciplines in place. Now, it may be an opportunity to create those disciplines and get them off the ground, and we'll coach you through that. We've actually had quite a few clients where we've really fundamentally changed their business because we've put in place the 30, 60, 90-day program, the daily disciplines, encourage huddles and on video, and it's changed the culture. And it's been fun to see that. But unless they're willing to adopt those types of practices, there's a good chance it's going to fail. And again, this has nothing to do with Philippines or South Africa or India. It could be anywhere. It's more about engaging a remote team.
So all that sounds great until I realized that South Africa is, 6 hours ahead of us, or however many hours we're in Central Time.
Right now.
8 hours. 7. Yeah. So how do I deal with that? Like, do I have to do some sort of shift overlap? Like what do you recommend to people? Like, do they work on Central US hours? Like how do y'all, if I'm looking at it as an MSP operator, what questions do I ask somebody like you to make sure that I don't fall into a trap where that bites me?
That's exactly right. Right. So that is one of the first questions that anyone asks, and they should ask. And our team members, I can't speak for everyone out there, but for ours, they work the U.S. hours. So they work the client's hours, and they work the U.S. client's holiday schedule. So as Scaled, we actually buy back the South African holidays that they end up working because they're on your schedule. So they get paid double time for it. They're happy to work those days. But it's something that's important to understand. South Africa has a lot of holidays compared to the U.S. We may have 5 to 7 that are recognized. They may have 35, right? It's drastically different. We encourage you to be strategic about it. So we have quite a few clients that will actually have the team members start at 4 a.m. our local time to start triaging, prepping, do server work, to do things that off hours that make sense. And now you've got a strong technical resource that can get the day started and then hand off if needed, or continue to work on it throughout the day. And they just simply end a little bit early. So the time zone can either match yours, or you can be strategic about it and leverage it to your advantage. Not everyone can do that, but many do.
Do you find that it limits the pool of available resources if you're like, you need to be on my 8 to 5 schedule because I live in Chicago?
Yeah, not so much for us, because we specifically vet for that. So we are,
Okay.
If you give us a job description, we don't go look for that person. We know what a great MSP resource looks like. We're constantly vetting for them. We have a bench that we provide for interviews, and to kick it off really quickly for you. But all of those people know going into it, these are working U.S. hours, working U.S. holidays. They know what to expect. We have had a few that we had to have conversations with. For instance, if they were a company in Alaska and another one in Hawaii, the time zone was so far off that we needed to figure out a smarter way to handle it. But typical 4 time zones, you're in good shape there.
So I'm an MSP and I got a bunch of government contracts. And I've at FINRA, FDIC, like I've highly regulated things that I focus on.
Yeah.
Is this a fit? Is there some sort of enclave that can be done? Like, what do you do when you're in the process of talking?
Right.
Like, I'm an MSP and I want help. Do I need to bring that up? Is it a problem? Like, how do I approach that when I'm looking for a partner to do this sort of work
Right.
with? Like, what does that look like?
If that's 100% of your business, it's going to be challenging. It's rare to run across an MSP that's all they do. And usually they'll have 1 or 2 contracts or a handful of contracts. The local teams will take those. The remote teams will take everything else. And so there's absolutely ways to handle that. But if you're If that is your business, then it's going to be challenging to be remote, primarily because of the local background check, fingerprinting, the process you've got to go through for clearance is local. Now we do background checks on all the team members, criminal and identification and financial, but obviously they're not going to come over here to fingerprint. So if that's a requirement, it can be a challenge, but we find that the vast majority, it's a non-issue, or they have a strategy to deal with it. One other thing with that, we encourage you to make sure that they're working off company equipment. We provide equipment for our team members. If you're working with someone that doesn't do that, then by all means, either give them equipment or put them on in a VDI environment. We encourage you to, keep your data local, right? So they're connecting in our local systems, and so from a data standpoint, nothing's leaving the U.S. And so that addresses most issues.
That's a really good point. Like, having to figure out, how to create certain geographic rules within your office and security stack, making sure that the right, tools and equipment are sent over there in a timely manner, right? Like, what do you do if they have some sort of an issue with their hardware? I guess those are all logistical things that
they are, yeah,
MSPs will want to consider before they move this ball forward.
And I would work with your provider on that. So for us, we buy equipment local, in country. If you ship something over, no matter where you ship it, if it's Philippines, India, or South Africa, they're going to pay a premium and VAT taxes and customs and all that. So we actually we had a client that sent a bunch of branded wear swag to the team member. They were super excited about having them on board. And the team member, it cost them like $480 to get it out of customs. So, and it was a surprise, like, oh, that's quite a surprise. But so we covered the cost on that and had a conversation with the client. Please use us for that. So we actually have teams that will work with you in all the branded wear and get it printed locally so that there's nothing getting shipped back and forth. We can buy YubiKeys, we buy, whatever hardware you need, we can get it in country. So there's no back and forth, but it's a real consideration. You got to be careful not to ship equipment. It'll bite you in the end.
Yeah, no, that's good. When you said we had a team, I thought you just had like mules. You had like dudes that had like big suitcases, and they would like, every month we mule a bunch of stuff over for our client.
Exactly. Put it in the overhead bin and the airplanes. Yeah. No, it's bought in country. That's the easy part. Yeah.
Nice. What is the challenge that you hear from a lot of MSPs on eating the elephant, like how to get started operationally? Like they've made the decision that they want to explore this, but like, where do you see where they come to you guys and they're like, okay, I want to get started with this. What do I do? Like, and you're like, okay, hold on. Outside of culture and some operational process around managing that person, like where are they starting? Are they doing this on projects teams? Are you saying, hey, let's get a resource on the service desk. Let's start with the knock. Like where do you typically tell them this is how we're going to start this procedure with you so we can get this right?
Almost always we start with an L2 tech. Now, keep in mind, if I asked 100 MSPs what an L2 or an L3 tech is, I'm going to get 100 different answers, probably get 1,000 different answers. But we've defined what it looks like for us. You need to define what it looks like for you so you know what you're looking for. Put together a job description just like you would with any other role, so you're clear on what it is you need. But we typically suggest you start with an L2, someone that you've got infrastructure in place to manage them already, most likely. They're going to fit into a team, into a well-established process. It's not overly creative. It's making sure that you're clear on what the needs and expectations are, and L2 is an easy fit for that. If you want an L3 or something that's a little more dynamic, after that, after you've gotten your feet wet with an L2, then let's have a conversation on that. But start with an L2, start with someone that has someone to report up to, that they've got a mentor assigned to them. And by the way, the mentor is not the person with the most time in their hands. It's the person you most want to replicate. You give it to the guy with the most time in the hands, you're going to get two of those people. You don't want that. You want someone you want to replicate. But yeah, give a mentor, make sure you have huddles, make sure you have camera on, make sure you understand the cultural integration, what that should look like. And then a 30, 60, 90-day plan is super critical. In fact, we won't place anybody without it. If you don't have one, we'll help you build one. But it's imperative because we've seen people that's like, hey, Andrew, welcome to the team. Here's the ticket board, go. And it blows up. No surprise, right?
Yeah.
So the plan will help get them onboarded successfully.
That makes a lot of sense. If you can overcome the operational hurdles, which I feel like sometimes wind up, I think the operational hurdles are probably, in my opinion, the more difficult part of the process, which is just really figuring out how to integrate them and make sure they can be successful. I think where a lot of operators get their hair on the back of their neck stands up is their boss. Somebody will go back to a conference and they'll come back and be like, we're going to start working with people in South Africa. We're going to bring in some Philippines resources. And your first thought is like, oh my God, what do I do? Right. And we've addressed a lot of that. So I do want to circle back to, why do the owners get so excited when they come back from a conference talking about that they're going to bring in outsourced resources there, these staff hog folks? Why is that a thing? Like, is it a cost thing? Is it a plug and play thing? Like, what are you telling people at IT Nation to get them so excited about coming back and messing up my IT operations? Like, what are you saying?
Yeah. By the way, we meet with SCPG, which is an evolved group, which the service leaders, and they get equally excited, by the way. It's not just the owners, but we are a bit of the easy button. If you've ever gone through a recruiting process, you understand how arduous it is, right? Going through thousands and thousands of trash resumes, people who are not qualified for the job, to find that diamond in the rough. And we do all the heavy lifting. We say we do three things really well. We provide highly vetted level 2, 3, and 4 technicians. We do make it simple. We take on all the HR, the back end, all the employment stuff that is really not fun, and all the recruiting and management side of it. And then we do it with integrity and legally, meaning that we employ them legally as employees. They're not contractors to us, they're employees, and they're placed on a contract to you, but because they're employed by us, being directed at your environment, it gives you the opportunity to leverage them fully as a technician. If you contract them directly, or you bring them on from someone else that's a contractor, there's employment classification laws and all kinds of things that become really sticky. So the fact that we do it the right way is by the way, it's probably the least profitable way to do it and the hardest way to do it, but it's the right way, and that's something we stick by. But it's critical. And if you were to bring on someone remotely yourself, it gets really tough. So unless you hire a recruiter or you've got time and energy to do it, you're going to need some help. But that's part of it. The other is finding a qualified resource that's ready to hit the ground running is pretty rare. And then of course cost. In some cases, not every market is the same, but it's 60 to 70% of the cost of a local resource. So we said we're going to talk briefly on cost. I'll share a little bit of that with you. It tends to be like an L2 is about $32.50 to $42.50 a month, a flat rate. That's a South African resource. L3s are in that $4,000 to $6,000 depending on their qualifications. So it's not there's not like a standard price for every single person. They get priced based off of their skill set and compensation levels, but it is a fixed cost to the client. So there's some attractiveness to that too. It's the easy button. We can add people to the team that hit the ground running, predictable cost, and tend to be lower cost than local resources.
Do they impact the balance sheet or anything differently because they're, or from a P&L perspective, they're not labor against W-2? Like, do they look better? Like, if you're in the process of trying to drive valuation for your business, do you want to try to use outsourced contracts like that, or is it not negligible?
Well,
Does it make a difference?
No, it is beneficial in a few senses. One is turnover. It's if you can get a stable resources longer term, looks positive. Cost wise, obviously, if it's 70% of the cost of a local resources, there's some EBITDA gains there for sure.
Right.
Now, I will tell you that it can go the opposite, that if you are contracting them without doing it the right way, I have seen buyers who have actually come in and said, you got to clean that up before we're willing to talk to you. So it's imperative that you use, you go through the law and do it the right way, use an agency or some way to do it legitimately. Uh, if you're going to bring in a remote resource, because that can potentially impact a deal.
Say more. I want to understand what you mean by not contracting the right way. What is the pitfall for people who are contracting that may not know that they're doing it the wrong way?
If you're paying the resource directly, that for sure is you're basically paying a contractor as a contractor, but treating them as an employee. So there are employment classification issues both in the U.S. and in the country that they're coming from, most likely. There's tax issues. There's potential penalties. There's lots of things that you don't want to go down that path. So first off, how are you paying them? How are you have you brought them in? The second is, if the agency you're working with, are they employees of that agency, or are they also contracted them? In which case, you may also have a similar issue. So it's really just making sure you're doing it the right way. You can use EORs similar to a PEO. You can use an agency like Scaled, but paying them directly is most often a flag that, hey, this has not been handled correctly. Treating them as an employee, paying them as a contractor is a problem. That's true locally as well.
But is that any different? Like, you're doing it based on, I'm only paying them 10 hours a month versus I'm paying them full time and I expect them to be available all the time.
Yeah,
like, what's the balance there?
If you're genuinely bringing them on as a contractor, in other words, they are, you're not directing their work. You're not requiring them to use your systems and your tools. You're not telling them what to do. You're giving them a task and they go do it and come back with results, right? So if they're truly are acting as a contractor, it's less of a concern. It's those that are bringing them in and they're dedicated to their environment, working alongside of your team. That's a different situation.
All right. That's good to know. I was unaware that there was, I figured however you wanted to pay people is how you wanted to pay people. I wasn't sure, from that perspective.
Yeah, no different than here,
right?
You couldn't bring in a technician and say, hey, I want you to work on our ConnectWise and our environment and use our tools. I want you working 8 to 5, but I'm going to pay you as a contractor, right? You start running into tax issues and again, employment classification problems by doing that. And again, no different internationally, other than now you've got two countries that are going to look at you and potentially be issues.
All right. That's good to know. And then from an ownership perspective too, like, it seems like the easy button, where they get really, really excited about it. What do owners also like about it? I guess when you're talking about it being like $5,000 a month, like, let's really get into the nitty gritty of what it costs to keep an employee in the United States if you're going to hire them W-2. Like, you're talking about healthcare, all that. Like, is all of that factored in?
Yeah,
you guys are handling that for the employee on the other side, but like, when you're talking about $5,000, like, that's it. It's a service fee versus like all of the administrative back end. Like, just kind of break that down a little bit for people who may not be following.
Yeah. So if the resource is $5,000, which would be an L3, the U.S. equivalent tech, whereas that's a $60K a year. Think of it in those terms. That's all in, fully burdened. At local L3 of similar capabilities would probably be in the 90 to 100K range. It depends on your market. Some cases more, maybe a little less, but probably not much less than that. Fully burdened, you can assume another 15% on top of that. There's cost to having employees, obviously, right? Whereas with this model, they're as fully baked in. Now, we encourage you to treat them like your team. So it's very common for them to receive bonuses and incentive pay and those kind of things. Those are on top of that, but those go straight to the team member. At least for our company, we don't take a slice of that. We just convert it and put it on the payroll. But those would be above and beyond, but that would be anyway. So from a cost standpoint, again, that's where we see that around 60%, the 60 to 70% of the cost of a local resource is about right, depending on the market. Sometimes it's a lot more, sometimes it's a little less. But that easy button also plays into the fact that bringing somebody on can be very quick, but also releasing them can be fairly quick also. So we don't provide people for short-term projects. They need to be long-term engagements. But if they're not working out, or you just lost a big client, depending on the state you're in, it can be very, very difficult to let somebody go. With us, 30-day notice, and they're done, and they roll off. Or if it's for cause, obviously it's immediate termination, and we deal with the back end issues around what a termination looks like. You don't have to mess with that. So the HR
Right.
side, we do PIPs. We handle all the challenges. When I say easy button, it really is not just easy button of bringing them on and offboarding them, but also in between. You've got an HR team that helps you manage that resource if needed. So that's typically why they come to us. Yeah, we can bring them on easily. If we need to release them, we can release them easily. It's predictable cost, and we've got back end support to make sure we're doing it right and offload some of that burden. So it's the easy button side of it. I think that gets the owners excited. So that was your question. I think that's why.
Yeah. That's really helpful information. I guess the question that I've got is something I wanted to touch on before we start to wrap up here is you talk a lot about what we call visible work, which is the stuff that you do for a client that is right in front of their face. Patching and automated tickets and those sort of things are the bread and butter of kind of the service delivery work that happens in the background. They're not necessarily visible. When you talk about visible work, can you break down visible work for those who aren't familiar with the term that you've used? And then once you finish talking about it, I want to kind of poke around the edges of how you see the staff augmentation working with the service delivery team in regards to like the delivery of visible work, right? So can you just talk to us a little bit about what visible work is?
Sure. Yeah, and pretty obvious, right? I mean, within an MSP, you've got a lot of back end stuff that the proactive side of the business tends to be less visible, right? The reactive is very visible. It's work that you're working directly with the client and communicating with them, engaging with them directly. Those are the things we tend to get credit for. We don't often get credit for the less visible or the proactive side of the business, right? So, making sure that obviously you've got the right resource that communicates well, that's going to uh, follow procedures well, that those are defined, that the client experience is going to be consistent on the visible side of what we're doing. And so, obviously you don't want the slide the pizza under the door kind of guy typically handling that type of engagement with your clients. You want someone who's got a client facing personality, that's engaging, that is able and willing to follow process and procedures. It is typically a different resource. And so we often vet for where they're going to fit and making sure that the job aligns with who they are, not just they've got the technical experience to do the job. There's more to it. I don't know if that answers
Yeah,
your question there or not.
yeah. And maybe it poked around the edges of it. I think what I'm trying to get to the root of here from an operations standpoint is when you're bringing on a staff aug, there are certain things like new employee onboardings for your client or, important projects that are going on within their client organizations. Yeah. Do you feel like those staff aug resources are the right folks to be a part of that sort of delivery, or are they better served working kind of around the edges of those things? Are they spearheading that? Like, where do you see them get placed where you find the most success?
Well, I would say for our team, it's across the board. And we have team members that are client facing. In fact, a lot of our clients have shifted the first line call answering to our South African team. So it is no issue there with that very visible direct engagement with the client. Onboarding, offboarding is something that you and I have talked a lot about. That's something I know for a fact that MSPs lose clients over that. Putting a coaching hat on for a minute, that we tend to, if you ask your technicians what the most important things to our clients are, I bet you they would default to answers that are not what your clients are thinking. Yes, uptime, infrastructure, all those good things that we expect, those are kind of keep the lights on, but the things that they recognize are timely onboardings or timely offboardings. So I think to answer your question, I think there's not a kind of pigeonhole for remote resources necessarily, if assuming you vetted them for the right culture and the right, the right job that they're fitting into. Nothing wrong with client-facing engagements. Tell me how you're defining visible work.
So for me with visible work, it's the stuff that gets you fired. Like, I mean, I guess I could try to make it sound better, different than what it is, but it's the stuff that gets you
Well, then
fired.
we're on the same page there. It's direct engagement. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Not getting to a VIP ticket. It's, it's somebody that shows up, looking like a slob. It's, not answering the phone and it rolling over to voicemail 4 times in a row. Like, it's the stuff that like when somebody is looking at you, they're like, I remember that. Like it's not, we didn't get a backup last night. It's all the other stuff.
Exactly. Well, so briefly on that, I know remote resources, just like local resources, can be great at that or terrible at the visible work, right? It really comes down to, do you have clear processes? Have you set clear expectations? And is it the right person to do that job? And that's not a geographic answer. It's really an individual answer. And we want to make sure we vet for that. But those things do keep clients, and those things lose you clients as well. And I can't emphasize enough how often I see onboarding and offboarding as a kind of non-priority, just another ticket in the queue. I can tell you a quick example of that. There was a client I was speaking to that on the coaching side, not on the staff aug side, where a ticket came in for a new onboard. It got kicked around. They didn't get the PC set up on time. Monday morning, it was a new CFO starting for the company. So the CEO was very aware that they had a new CFO, that they had sold on the idea of coming to work for him. He shows up, and now the CEO is embarrassed because they don't look like they have their act together. Well, where does that roll down to? It rolled down to the MSP because they didn't prioritize that ticket correctly. And it really came down to, they just saw it as another task to be done and not one that was business impacting. So I will say partly it's the resource to make sure you have the right person, but in part is making sure you've got an internal culture that prioritizes that visible work, and that you really, really emphasize how we're to handle those tickets.
Yeah, that makes total sense. What is the one thing that you want everybody to kind of glean from your experience in providing these services to folks? What do you want people to think about? What do you want them to know?
That's a tough one. Around staff aug specifically, I think, in part, don't think of it as staff aug. Don't think of it as an outsourced partner as much as is bringing on great talent into your environment. It doesn't matter where they're from or how much they cost. That should be your priority. Is, do they fit who we are, and are they the right person? And the second is kind of has a little bit of a counter answer to this, and that as much as we would love to give you great resources, before you go and add resources, this is something Andrew and I talk about a lot, is making sure you fully understand your utilization, your capacity. Is there automation, or there are opportunities for AI and other tools to streamline what we're doing to create capacity before we hire somebody? The answer shouldn't be just hire somebody. It should be, how do we create capacity? And in doing that, how do we serve our clients better? If you've done that, you've exhausted that, we know for a fact we need a better resource, then great, let's bring them on. The second part to this is, when you know that you're not picking from the best of the worst. That's one issue that we see. A lot of MSPs are reluctant to manage their people because they know this guy may not be great, but if we lose them, we're stuck. it's going to take us 6 months to find a good replacement. When you know you've got a pool of talent that is ready and waiting, it allows you to be more directive. It allows you to be a little stricter with implementing policies and procedures to make sure that you're operating at the level that you should be. So you're pursuing excellence. You're not accepting mediocrity, and that's something we've all fallen into. That he may not be great, but he's better than not having somebody. And if you find yourself in that type of mentality or thinking, make sure that you know you've got an out, and allows you to manage people the way you should. So
No, I love that.
there you go.
That's great. That's great advice. Jason, thank you so much for your time here on the podcast. All right. So let's get started with our 5 questions. What is the best book that you have ever read that helped you with business? So it can be a fiction book. It can be a nonfiction book. It can be like, it could be Harry Potter. And you're like, I got this great lesson out of this book. Like what's your favorite book?
I kind of go through cycles where I like them all, Good to Great. Obviously, everyone's read that, and Making Money is Killing Your Business, and all those books that kind of reinforce some of the same principles. Right now I'm kind of nerding out on financial history, so I'm reading 1929 about the Wall Street crash,
Ooh.
and that's been fun and a little terrifying, and yeah, it's good stuff. So yeah, if you like history at all, and then if you're interested in how the financial system works, and you kind of get into the nitty gritty of how things kind of came apart, that's a great read for sure.
You're a very, I would say, Puritan is not the word I want to use, but I would just say that you're a very humble man, and I've yet to hear many bad words come out of your mouth. But if you had to pick a bad word, and you don't have to say the whole thing, because I know sometimes it comes out. What's your favorite one that you use in whatever context? What's your favorite bad word? What's your favorite curse word?
I'm a Puritan. Therefore, no, not a Puritan for sure. I don't curse very often. So when I do, it has it's got some punch behind it. So I'll drop the F-bomb occasionally when I do it. They know that I'm serious about it. So I reserve it for appropriate use. I think if we cuss all day long, it kind of loses the impact. So I like to reserve it for
that's fair,
the right moment.
That's fair. I've had a guest on that uses it somewhat like I do, more as like salt and pepper, and so it doesn't really have the oomph that it would. But I like holding it in your back pocket. I think that's a good. I think it's a good move.
Dropped an F-bomb the other day when I was not happy about something specifically, and everyone's eyes got huge, and it got really quiet. So that's the impact I'm looking for.
I love it. No, it's great. And like I said, I've never heard it come out of your mouth. So that's why I was like, I don't even know if you do not even know bad word.
Then we have something to talk about. Yeah.
Fair enough. That's good to know. All right. What's your favorite, I should say, band or artist, a musical artist, favorite band or musical artist, and why?
Man, I'm a child of the 80s, growing up in high school and junior high in the 80s. So all the 80s rock and Bon Jovi and all that. I still nerd out on that. I love Michael Jackson, some of the classics and Motown and all that too. I will tell you though, it's really embarrassing. I've been nerding out on AI, the cover of classic rock and different rock music. And it's really good. I've got a list of AI did it better, and it's pretty amazing. So like country version of Michael Jackson songs, or Eminem and like Motown versions of it. And it's just fun to watch. It's something completely different.
No, I listen to so for my generation, I'm more of a 90s guy. Yeah, and so Stone Temple Pilots, somebody did, there's a guy on, and he's like, if Motown did it, and he does all these covers, and there's a version of Interstate Love Song that the guy does, and it's awesome. It's so good if it were a Motown song.
That's exactly what I love it. I love it. So again, embarrassing to admit, but that's lately I've been listening to a lot of AI music, which is probably not good for the artist or anybody else, but still.
somebody keeps sending me this like a meme. It's like, this is why like RAM is so high. It's because of like Sora and
all the crazy videos and just nonsense stuff.
Yeah, for sure. What is your worst sales call, client meeting, personnel meeting that you've ever had, and why?
You have lots and lots of interactions with business owners and employees, and not too many of them stand out. A few do, but they're not like super impactful. But there was one that back in the late 90s, I had a tech that worked for me and a sales guy that worked for me, and both were, I'd say, kind of slobs. Both were smokers. The tech had a Suzuki Samurai with a trashed out rag top. He was a phenomenal tech, but he's a little loose with his organization and hygiene. And they went to go meet a client. I wasn't there, but I got to hear afterwards from the client and from those two. They show up to the client late. They pull into the parking lot, pick the only open spot they could find, and they start walking in. And unfortunately, the tech, I guess he threw out a candy bar wrapper on the ground, which mortified that they even did that. But they're walking in, both smoking. They're late. They pulled in. He just threw trash in their parking lot, and he walks up to the door, and the client's offices, unfortunately, the conference room they were meeting in, everybody was waiting for them. We're all sitting there with glass windows looking at them. And the CEO met him at the door and said, first off, you're late. Second of all, you parked in my parking space. Third, you just littered in our parking lot. Turn around and leave. And so apparently they turn around, they leave, and they get in his Suzuki Samurai and it won't start. And if you know anything about Suzuki, it's like a little tiny four-banger, really light car. So they have to push start his stick shift Suzuki Samurai in the parking lot with everybody watching. And anyways, needless to say, we didn't win that deal. We did not look good in that situation, but made for a good story afterwards. So it might have been worth it.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I love that. I want to feed that into AI and see if it can make a video of it.
Oh, I'm sure it could. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God. We might try that. I might try that.
Yeah,
all right. Last question is, if there was somebody that you thought was really, really, really awesome in the MSP space that should be on the podcast, that would be worth a fresh take, somebody worth talking to, is there a particular person that you know of that you might make the recommendation that we try to reach out to?
Obviously, Reed Warren, you and I both know, and his team, Greg, to talk about R&D tax credits. I would definitely suggest that. That would be a good direction to get it down. Operationally, there's a few folks that Bobby Soder is one that has worked with a company that went from 5 to 10 to 20 to 40 million, and he served in multiple roles, but most recently in the sales leadership role, and he would be good to bring on as well. And I'm happy to get you connected there. But
yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, and now he's actually helping coach sales teams, and so he can share with a little about what he's seeing there as well. But
I love that.
Plenty out there to choose from. So I love working with folks that have been there, and they can reflect back on what got them through that and the lessons that you as business owners or MC owners need to understand. To get to the next level. So I'm with you. I love talking to great resources in this industry. There's so many to choose from, but some have been there and done it and are willing to share their secrets.
Yeah, it's been a great ride that I've been on for the last 20 something years. And I could not be more excited about you being on the podcast and you sharing your information with the team out there on what it means to be successful. It's been an honor to work with you, and it's been great to have you on the podcast. So I just want to say thank you, and I look forward to continuing our conversation offline.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me. And if anyone wants to talk more, let me know. Happy to help them out further.
Well, we will make sure that we get all your information up so people have a chance to reach out. So thank you again, Jason.
You bet. All right. Thank you.